You hear that? That's the alarm. Wake up, Amber Cox. Wake up, Stephanie White. I know y'all might be a little bit unaware, but today is the day of the WNBA draft, okay? Wake up. I'm sounding the alarms for y'all. It's a big day. Not only is it the 2026 WNBA.
Wake up call indeed. Because April 14th, 2026 isn't just another draft day for the Indiana Fever. This is the day Amber Cox and Stephanie White either nail their roster construction or watch their championship window start closing before it even fully opens. And the pressure, it's massive. Because when you've got Caitlin Clark entering year 3, you don't get the luxury of developmental picks that might pan out in 2 years. You need contributors now. Here's what makes this draft particularly crucial for Indiana. They're sitting at pick number 10, which historically is that awkward middle ground. Not high enough to guarantee a franchise cornerstone, but too high to waste on a project player. And with free agency happening simultaneously, they're trying to solve multiple roster holes at once. The front court is still a mess. The wing depth is questionable, and they still haven't replaced the defensive intensity they lost when certain veterans moved on.
Indiana Fever, I am fine with them taking any of these players at number 10, okay? At number 10, I am 100% okay with them taking Yana Nipkins out of UCLA. This has eliminate the Final Four game. I was saying this while they were in conference play. Yana Nipkins, Jaquez, either one of them, I'll take them. Sign me up.
Let's break down these 5 names, because this isn't just throwing darts at a board. Each of these players solves a specific problem for Indiana, and the choice between them reveals what Stephanie White actually thinks this team needs most. Yana Nipkins out of UCLA, 6-foot guard who can defend multiple positions and knock down the 3 at a 38% clip during her senior season. The case for Nipkins is simple. She's the most NBA-ready defender in this draft class at the guard position. You plug her in next to Caitlin Clark, and suddenly you've got someone who can take the toughest defensive assignment while Caitlin focuses on running the offense. UCLA's Final Four run in March 2026 showcased exactly what she brings. Lock down the opposing team's best guard in 3 straight tournament games. Lauren Hawkes, also UCLA, different skill set entirely. She's your pure scorer, the bucket getter off the bench who can create her own shot when the offense stagnates. Think instant offense in the second unit. The Fever struggled all last season when Caitlin sat. Their offensive rating dropped 14 points per 100 possessions without her on the floor. Hawkes solves that problem immediately.
Okay, I am also 100% down with Angela Dugalich out of UCLA as well. 6'4", 4. Look, sign me up. Any of those 3 of the UCLA players, I'm in. I'm rolling with you on that. Okay, if you elect not to go with one of those UCLA players, Nipkins, Jaquez, Dugalich, if you choose not to go there and you make the decision.
Angela Dugalich is the wild card here. 6'4" forward, who averaged 11 rebounds per game as a senior at UCLA. That front court size Indiana desperately needs. But here's the concern. Her offensive game is raw. She's not going to space the floor for Caitlin the way a modern 4 needs to. So if you're drafting Dugalich at 10, you're betting on her development curve catching up fast, because Caitlin needs shooters around her, not traditional post players clogging the paint. Now Ileana Martin out of Spain. This is where it gets interesting, because she represents a completely different philosophy. Martin is a pure point guard, lightning quick, elite ball handler, and the question becomes, do you really need another ball-dominant guard when you've already got Caitlin Clark? The argument for Martin is that she allows Caitlin to play off the ball more, which could extend her career and reduce the physical toll. But it also means taking the ball out of your best player's hands for significant stretches. That's a gamble.
Tania Latson falls to number 10, and you see her as your future Kelsey Mitchell replacement. I think they are a bit similar. Tania Latson's Florida State film, it's elite. I don't know why she went to South Carolina. Dawn Staley is a guard killer. She's a guard killer. If you are an elite guard, don't go there. I.e. Malaysia Fulwiley, Tania Latson, don't go there. Don't go there. It's not a, don't go there. Anywho, If you elect to go with Tanaya Latson at number 10, I will not be upset. I understand.
And then there's Te-Hina Pauapau, the former Florida State star who transferred to South Carolina for her final season. Here's what's fascinating about this situation. Pauapau was an elite scorer at Florida State, averaged 19 points per game as a junior, shot 41% from three-point range. Then she gets to South Carolina, and suddenly she's averaging 12 points on reduced minutes, and her three-point percentage drops to 35%. This is the Dawn Staley guard development question that keeps coming up. Malaysia Fulwiley, one of the most explosive guards in high school basketball, gets to South Carolina, and her usage rate gets cut in half. Pauapau, a proven scorer, sees her role diminish. And you have to ask, is this a system issue or a talent evaluation issue? Because if Pauapau falls to pick 10, Indiana has to decide whether they're getting the Florida State version or the South Carolina version. That's not an easy evaluation. The case for Pauapau is that she's the closest thing to a Kelsey Mitchell replacement in this draft. Similar size, similar shooting stroke, similar ability to get hot and drop 25 points in a quarter. Mitchell's contract situation is murky beyond this season. If Indiana thinks she might walk in free agency next year, Pauapau at 10 makes perfect sense as the succession plan.
Number 10, Ileana Martin, Tanaya Latson, Nipkins, Jaquez, Dugalich. Any one of those five, and I'm rolling. I'm good with that. Now, in the second round, you know where we need to go in that second round. Hannah Stuelke out of the University of Iowa. Draft her. Put her on your development. You get 2 spots to develop. Okay, the least you could do is get Caitlin Clark, one of her running mates from Iowa, that can develop for a year, and we'll see where she's at a year from now. Look, I think she might be better. She might be better than KK already. I'm gonna be honest with you. She might be better than Michaela Timpson already. I'm just saying. Put her on the development in your little developmental pool, and let's see what you can do with Hannah.
Second round strategy is completely different. This is where you take flyers on high upside players and stash them in your development program. And Hannah Stuelke out of Iowa is the obvious choice here for multiple reasons. First, the Caitlin Clark connection. They played together for 3 years. They know each other's games intimately. Stuelke knows how to move without the ball in Caitlin's system, knows where to be for those pinpoint passes. That chemistry is worth something, even if Stuelke needs a year of professional development before she's ready for meaningful minutes. Second, Stuelke's got legitimate size at 6'2", and she's not afraid of contact. Averaged 8 rebounds per game as a junior at Iowa. That's exactly the kind of physical presence Indiana needs to develop. Let her spend a year in the practice facility working on her perimeter shot, tightening up her ball handling, and you might have a rotation player by year 2. But here's the key. You can afford to be patient with a second-round pick. Stuelke doesn't need to contribute immediately. She goes into the development pool, works with the coaching staff, and emerges when she's ready. No pressure, no rush. That's smart roster construction.
Like, AZ Fudd looks like she may be the number 1 pick. I wouldn't do it. I just don't see it. I don't see it. I'm seeing Tanaya Latson potentially going number 2. But they just gave Courtney Williams a 2-year max, so I doubt Tanaya Latson's going there. I think Olivia Miles, I see Olivia Miles going at number 3. I think her going number 3 to Seattle would be a great fit. Skylar Diggins is gone, okay? They picked up 1/2 of the stud buds, but, you know, she comes off the bench. You put Olivia Miles with Dominique Malonga in Seattle, and you have your 2 studs to build your franchise around. Okay, the interesting one for me is, where will Lauren Betts go? If she's there at 2, will Minnesota take her? I think they'll take her at 2. Just to be completely honest with you, I think they would take her. Okay, where does Kiki Rice fall? Raven Johnson.
Now let's talk about the top of this draft, because the decisions being made at picks 1 through 9 directly impact what's available when Indiana is on the clock at 10. Kiki Iriafen going number 1 to Dallas seems like the consensus. 7-foot post player, dominated the paint at USC, averaged a double-double for 2 straight seasons. Dallas needs a franchise centerpiece to build around, and Iriafen fits that profile. But here's the counter-argument. Is she really a number 1 overall talent? Or is this just a weak draft class at the top? Because when you compare her college production to recent #1 picks, the numbers don't quite match up. Te-Hina Paopao potentially going #2 is fascinating. If she goes that high, it validates the Florida State version of her game, not the South Carolina version. It means a team believes they can unlock the scorer she was before transferring. And if she's off the board at 2, that's actually good news for Indiana because it means one of those UCLA players definitely falls to 10. Olivia Miles at #3 to Seattle makes tremendous sense. She's the perfect point guard to pair with Dominique Malonga. Miles is a pure facilitator, averaged 8 assists per game at Notre Dame before her injury. And here's what Seattle needs: someone who can run the offense and get Malonga the ball in her spots. That's Miles' entire game. She's not going to demand shots. She's going to create opportunities for others.
I want no parts of Raven Johnson. That whole she tried to put a race card. I don't like all that. And I just think her game is Mitamoski. She's mid at best. I want no parts of Raven Johnson. Now, Flau'jae had a down senior year. If she's there at 10, take her. Don't even think about it. Look, if Flau'jae's there at 10, I don't care who else is left. Take Flau'jae. I 100% doubt she gets past the Chicago Sky at 5, though. Flau'jae, it'll be interesting to see where she goes. So it's going to be some interesting things happening. But
the Lauren Betts situation at #2 is the real wild card. If Minnesota takes her, it changes everything. Betts is a legitimate 7-footer who can score in the post and protect the rim. She averaged 3 blocks per game as a senior at UCLA. That's elite defensive production. And Minnesota desperately needs interior presence after losing Sylvia Fowles to retirement. But if Minnesota passes on Betts, she could slide. And suddenly Indiana has a decision to make if she's somehow still there at 10. Do you take the best player available, even if it doesn't perfectly fit your immediate needs? Or do you stick to your board and grab the guard or wing you identified as the priority? Raven Johnson is the name that keeps getting thrown around in mock drafts, and the message here is clear: stay away at pick 10. Johnson's a solid defender, good ball handler, but her offensive game is limited, shot 28% from three-point range as a senior at South Carolina. You cannot put a non-shooter on the floor with Caitlin Clark. It destroys the spacing that makes Caitlin's game work. Johnson might be a fine player for a different team, but she's not the right fit for Indiana's system.
Fill up some voided holes in the roster. Okay, so don't get so caught up. You got to be able to balance both, man. Y'all professionals, right? Y'all getting paid good money, right? Stephanie White running around doing speaking engagements, NCAA turn. You was doing a whole bunch of stuff. You should have had this together then. You should be able to, you can do all that other stuff. You should be able to multitask and get this thing together. It's a big, big day. I cannot wait to see what the Indiana.
And then there's Kiki Fleischer, who had a down senior year but still has lottery talent. If she's available at 10, you don't overthink it, you take her. Fleischer's junior season showed what she's capable of. 17 points per game, 40% from 3, could handle the ball and create for others. The senior year dip could be explained by injury, by a bad system fit, by any number of factors. But talent wins out, and if Chicago passes on her at 5, which seems unlikely, Indiana would be getting a steal. The expansion teams add another layer of complexity. Golden State and Portland are both picking in this draft, and neither has an established roster. They could go in any direction. They might prioritize veterans in the expansion draft and use their rookie picks on high-ceiling projects. Or they might try to grab the best available talent, regardless of position. That unpredictability makes it harder to project who falls where.
Is able to come away with, to be completely honest with you. I'm interested to see what are these two expansion teams going to look for in the draft. This is going to be an exciting, exciting day. I can't wait. Make sure you guys come and join me at Angry Fan Sports for the WNBA draft live. It's going to be exciting. Indiana Fever. It's a lot of work to be done. A whole lot. And I'm watching. I'm watching like a hawk. I'm all over it. Get down in the comments and let me know what you think. This is Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment.
Here's what makes this draft day particularly stressful for Indiana. They're not just drafting. They're simultaneously trying to close free agency deals. And those two processes are connected. If they land a veteran free agent forward, maybe they can afford to take a guard at 10. But if they strike out in free agency, they might need to use that pick to address the front court immediately. The timeline is brutal. Draft starts at 7 p.m. Eastern on April 14th. Free agency negotiations are happening right up until then. Amber Cox is trying to finalize contracts while also preparing her draft board. It's organizational multitasking at the highest level, and there's no room for error. Stephanie White has been doing speaking engagements, making media appearances, staying visible in the basketball community. That's all fine during the regular season. But right now, in these critical 48 hours before the draft, every minute should be spent on evaluation and preparation. This is where championships are built or lost. Not in the games, but in the decisions made in April about who you're bringing into your organization. The free agency piece is equally crucial. Ray Burrell is still available, a young wing with defensive versatility. Exactly the kind of player Indiana needs. But she's going to have multiple offers. What's Indiana's pitch? How do they convince her that playing next to Caitlin Clark is worth potentially taking less money than another team might offer? And the front court remains the biggest hole. They need a legitimate starting caliber power forward who can rebound, defend multiple positions, and knock down the open three when Caitlin drives and kicks. That player exists in free agency. The question is whether Indiana is willing to pay market rate to get her. This is where organizational philosophy gets tested. Are you all in on Caitlin's prime years, spending whatever it takes to build a championship roster around her? Or are you trying to be fiscally responsible, staying under the luxury tax, building sustainably for the long term? You can't do both. You have to choose. And that choice determines whether this draft and free agency period is remembered as the moment Indiana went all in, or the moment they played it safe and wasted a year of Caitlin's peak. The draft itself will be fascinating theater, watching which teams reach for needs versus taking best available talent. Seeing which players slide due to perceived weaknesses that might not actually matter at the professional level. And most importantly, finding out whether Indiana's front office has done their homework and identified the right player at 10. Because here's the reality, pick 10 in the 2026 WNBA draft could be the difference between Indiana making a deep playoff run or getting bounced in the first round. That's how thin the margins are when you're trying to build a championship contender. One good pick, one smart free agency signing, and suddenly you've got the depth to compete with the league's elite teams. One bad pick, one missed opportunity, and you're stuck with the same roster weaknesses that plagued you last season. So yeah, wake up Amber Cox, wake up Stephanie White, because the alarm isn't just ringing, it's blaring. And the decisions you make in the next 12 hours will define this franchise for the next 3 years. No pressure. What do you think Indiana should do at pick 10? Which of those 5 players fits best with Caitlin Clark's game? Drop your pick in the comments, because this decision is too important to get wrong.